Auckland apartment owners are being invoiced up to $826,000 a unit to repair buildings they did not construct, for defects they did not cause. One owner paid $355,000 for a 3-bedroom apartment in 2013. On paper, she still owns it. In practice, she has no rights over the property, and the official assignee has indicated it is likely to be lost in a distressed sale to repay her debts. What put her in that position is not particular to her building. It is written into the ownership arrangement that applies to every unit title apartment in New Zealand. Under the Unit Titles Act 2010, an apartment owner holds freehold title to their own unit plus an undivided share of the common property. The body corporate is responsible for maintaining and repairing that common property, and common property generally takes in the exterior cladding, the roof, and the load-bearing elements of the building. A weather tightness failure anywhere in the building belongs to every owner in it, including owners whose own apartment shows no water damage at all. Membership of the body corporate cannot be declined, refused, or contracted out of, because it attaches to the title. Owners at St. Luke's Garden Apartments in the Mt Albert and Sandringham area of Auckland are carrying the largest version of that liability in the country. The complex covers 17 buildings and 285 units, built between 2003 and 2011. Leaks were first detected in 2013. It is now the largest leaky building remediation project in New Zealand history, and the total repair cost exceeds $240 million. The bill has never been fixed. It has escalated repeatedly, and each escalation has landed on whoever held the title at that moment. The High Court has recorded the sequence. A settlement involving Auckland Council was signed in 2019, worth a reported $70 million. Owners were told at that point that repairs would cost $85 million and finish by 2023. The first tender pushed Stage 1 to $120 million. By November 2022, the figure was $195 million, and by 2024, it reached $240 million. Stage 1 alone took more than 4.5 years, around 2 years longer than planned. For individual households, the settlement money did not close the gap. Documents obtained by the New Zealand Herald show total estimated remediation costs per unit running between $605,000 and $826,000, against settlement funds of between $241,000 and $346,000 per unit. One couple received $273,937. Rising costs absorbed that payment and continued to climb beyond it. Owners have since been sent further invoices of up to $195,000 each. By mid-2025, the levies were no longer covering the work, and control of the money passed out of owners' hands. In July 2025, the High Court appointed independent administrators from Deloitte, with Robert Campbell named as administrator, to take over the remediation program from the body corporate. The administrators secured control of the body corporate's bank accounts and financial records. Their review found that existing funds and scheduled levy receipts would not meet costs beyond October 2025, and that additional levies had to be raised earlier than planned to keep the project running. External finance is being sought, and borrowing costs are being passed on to unit owners with levy arrears. For owners already behind, that turns a repair bill into a finance debt, with interest falling on the households least able to meet the original demand. Recovery action against them began in November 2025. By January 2026, the administrators had identified 35 owners with outstanding levies totaling $5.4 million who had not engaged with the body corporate. By July 2026, 11 of those owners owed $4 million between them and still had not engaged. Owners who dispute the bill now have a high court judgment against them. 2 St. Luke's owners who bought in March 2013 brought proceedings in 2024 against the body corporate, the previous owners of their unit, lawyers involved in the sale, and their lender, arguing the weather tightness defects had been deliberately concealed from prospective buyers. Representing themselves because of their financial position, they went to trial in September 2025. In June 2026, Associate Judge Liz Gellert rejected the claims. The judge had earlier warned them of the court costs risk and noted in the judgment that the risk had now materialized. Administrators are demanding $636,000 in unpaid levies from that couple, alongside 6-figure court costs, with enforcement action and further proceedings signaled if payment is not made. The couple told the Herald the decision had destroyed them completely. Owners who would rather sell than fight face a market that prices the risk against them. The Homeowners and Buyers Association of New Zealand has advised that owners who chose to sell ahead of completion achieved very low prices, reflecting the perceived risk attached to the project. One owner, named Raj, says his apartment is currently worthless. Others describe units that are unsaleable until the repair program finishes. The administrators note that owners may choose to sell at higher values once the defects have been remediated, but that option is not open while the work continues. The wider Auckland apartment market offers no cushion. Cotality New Zealand's Pain and Gain report for the June 2026 quarter, released in August, shows 45.2% of apartment resales nationally were made at a gross loss. That is the weakest resale performance for apartments since the third quarter of 2010. Apartment values have fallen by around 6% over the past 12 months, against around 2% for townhouses, while standalone dwellings have shown little movement over the same period. Auckland vendors across all property types are absorbing the largest losses in the country alongside Wellington. 20.9% of Auckland resales in the quarter went through at a price below what the owner originally paid for the property. Wellington recorded 18.4%, Hamilton 13.4%, Tauranga 10.7%, Dunedin 8.0%, and Christchurch 5.3%. The median loss in Auckland and Wellington was $85,000, against $60,000 nationally. Loss-making transactions across the country totaled around $159 million in a single quarter, which is the combined gross shortfall recorded by sellers who exited below their purchase price. Investors recorded losses on 13.5% of resales, against 12.2% for owner-occupiers. For anyone who needs to sell inside a short window, the hold period figures set out the cost of that timing. Profitable resales in the quarter had a median hold period of 10.4 years, a record. Loss-making resales had a median hold period of 4.3 years. Nationally, 86.9% of resales still made a gross profit, the lowest share since the December 2012 quarter, and national values remain around 18% below peak. Cotality New Zealand chief property economist Kelvin Davidson has been direct about the limits of that picture. He describes the fall from more than 99% profitable resales at the peak to 86.9% today as a gradual adjustment rather than the sharp deterioration seen during the global financial crisis. On apartments, he says there is no real evidence of fire sales, but that sellers are battling in the current environment. He puts the weaker apartment result down partly to apartments experiencing less of the post-COVID boom than standalone houses, leaving less of a buffer through the downturn, and partly to investors being more exposed to apartments and to shorter-term market movements. Long-hold Auckland owners remain well ahead, with a median profit of $368,000 on profitable resales. The repair bills now landing on Auckland households originate in construction decisions made 2 and 3 decades ago. A PricewaterhouseCoopers report to the Department of Building and Housing in December 2009 put the consensus number of leaky dwellings at 42,000, within a modeled range of 22,000 to 89,000, and estimated the total economic cost of remediating them at $11.3 billion in 2008 dollar terms. Only about 3,500 homes, or 8%, had been repaired by then, and around 9,000 had already passed the 10-year liability limit. The same report identified which buildings would fail. Stucco-clad dwellings recorded a failure rate of 95%. Buildings using exterior insulation finish systems or flush finish fiber cement recorded 80%. Weatherboard, brick, metal, and concrete block recorded 2%. The highest risk buildings went up between the late 1980s and the mid-2000s, using plaster-style monolithic cladding over untreated timber framing without a drainage cavity. The split of that cost still determines who pays today. PricewaterhouseCoopers found owners were bearing 69% of it, territorial authorities around 25%, and builders and developers 4%. Buyers entering the market now do so under a disclosure regime rewritten in response to those failures. Since May 9, 2023, a seller of a unit title must provide a pre-contract disclosure statement before the buyer signs. It must include 3 years of financial statements, 3 years of general meeting and committee minutes, the long-term maintenance plan, and its next review date, any proposed works over the following 3 years with estimated costs, any remediation reports commissioned in the previous 3 years, and any known weather tightness, earthquake-prone, or other significant defects requiring remediation. A pre-settlement disclosure statement follows at least 5 working days before settlement and must state any repair or building costs still owed to the body corporate and any legal proceedings involving the body corporate. From May 9, 2024, large developments of 10 or more units must hold a 30-year long-term maintenance plan, reviewed at least every 3 years, with detailed costings for the first 10. The Ministry of Business, Innovation, and Employment gain monitoring powers, the ability to require documents, powers of entry and inspection, the ability to issue improvement notices, and the ability to apply to the Tenancy Tribunal for a pecuniary penalty or to the High Court for the appointment of an administrator. Remediation specialist Craig Birch of Context has argued that decades of keeping levies artificially low created a break-fix culture, and that the true cost of a leaking building is rarely the repair bill itself, but the loss of equity caused by declining saleability and value. None of those changes funds a repair program that is already underway. Borrowing to fund one is treated differently from ordinary lending. The Reserve Bank exempts property remediation from both loan-to-value ratio restrictions and debt-to-income restrictions, which removes one constraint for owners raising finance against a defective building. Repair work at St. Luke's continues and is not expected to finish until 2027, for years past the original completion date. Owners at the complex cannot sell at normal value until that work is finished. $5.4 million in levy arrears remains unresolved, with enforcement action underway. One couple faces a $636,000 demand plus court costs after losing their case. Across Auckland, 1 in 5 resales is going through below purchase price at a median loss of $85,000, and nationally almost half of all apartment resales are now losing money. The construction failures that generated these bills date to the 1990s and early 2000s. The households paying them bought years later, and in most cases paid full price for a building nobody had yet told them was failing.